adjust his game plan, kind of know his opponent a bit. It's a nice, refreshing change for what this football team has endured the past couple seasons. That's not a knock on Doug Peterson, but it is different to see a head coach kind of, okay, we're going to change it up a little bit this week just because of the opponent we're facing. We're not going to do it my way or the highway.
Thanks for jumping aboard with us here on Birds 365. Jody Mack with Jeff Kerr. He's in for John McMullen, who's winging his way home from Denver as we speak after the Eagles' 30-13 victory over the Denver Broncos. JK, in talking to Paul Diamond, which we did, actually have, quote-unquote, the playoff conversation, which there's still a long way to go. The Eagles are on the outside looking in, but they're not so far outside that you go, yeah, the Lions are still, they're not mathematically eliminated. Although
you're giving me a segue right now.
Go ahead, go for it.
Not lost this month, Jody.
Had you seen the breakdowns of the Detroit? They can be eliminated actually next week with either a loss or a win by this team or that team.
Isn't it? It's already, we're in what, week 11, and they're already talking in the NFC, Jody, in the NFC.
Yes. So the Lions are still mathematically involved in the NFC playoff mix. Yeah, that's not the Philadelphia Eagles. At 4-6, they're only a couple of games behind the final wild card spot, a game and change. Carolina's in, and they would get a tiebreaker against Carolina. And the other team that's in is the Saints, who they play this week. Be nice to get a win over them as well. Should we just table that? Or are we obligated as media members and people who care about the outcome of the Philadelphia Eagles games and seasons? Is this something we should be talking about?
I think you kind of have to talk about it because it's a fact. I mean, you can argue with all you want. Oh, this is a playoff team. Well, yeah, in normal years, you're probably right. But the Falcons aren't good. The Saints are beat up. I mean, the Saints are better. I thought it went from the top 5 of the NFC to the top 6 after Saints beat Tampa Bay. What do? They lose 2 in a row. Now, if the Eagles beat them, they are right with the Panthers. They're right with the Falcons. They're right with the Vikings. They're right with the Eagles. And the Eagles will have tiebreakers over 2 of those teams. I still think the Vikings are going to get in. I mean, that was an impressive win over the Chargers yesterday, Jody. I think they get in overall. But I'm looking at it as, okay, should we talk about it? Yes, because we're obligated to. They are in a playoff mix right now. But are they a playoff team in normal years? Probably not. But that's just how the NFC is. The AFC coming into yesterday had 11 teams over 500. Now there's only, I think, 9 maybe. But still, that's a lot for one conference. One conference is going to have 3 or 4 teams that should be playoff teams and aren't. And the other conference is going to have 2 or 3 playoff teams that probably aren't playoff teams, but they're going to get in.
And here's where I want to put my emphasis on the fact that the Eagles are in the playoff mix. Nick Sirianni has gotten them there because he's come under a good deal of critique and criticism. And yes, when he goes down the road of we are a plant that needs to grow and fertilizer and everything else, and I end up rolling my eyes, I go, I've been backing this guy since day one. When everybody crushed him in his opening press conference, I cut him some slack because it was the first time he had ever stepped into that big a spotlight. And I think he was nervous and he didn't handle it well. But I said, all right, fine. It wasn't a great day for him. I'm going to much more judge him on what he does coaching the team on how he sounded or the answers he did or didn't have day one in his press conference. I've been giving this guy the benefit of the doubt since day number 1. And he's not made me regret that at all, even with his sometimes goofy sideline stories and the like. You got to say this about the Eagles, even at 4-6, they play hard every week. The guys go out. I have not seen one iota, even in the blowout win or blowout games that they've lost. The Cowboys beat them up pretty good. Tampa had a big lead on them. They fought their way back. I never really thought they were going to win that game, but at least they gave you the effort and fought back. Kansas City, they kept moving the ball. They couldn't stop the Chiefs to save their life, but they kept moving the ball. The Eagles have not let up at any point in any game through the first 10 games this year, and I think that's a big credit to Nick Sirianni.
I think so too. Another thing I'd like to point out is with this team, even in the blowout losses or the losses where the defense wasn't, you saw guys kind of take their shots at Jonathan Gannon. How many shots have you seen taken at Nick Sirianni this season? Not many. The quarterback definitely hasn't. The wide receivers definitely. I mean, Jalen Reagor could easily come out here and say Nick Sirianni is not playing me right, but that doesn't help Jalen Reagor. And in a way, we blow it off. But no one has said anything about this head coach. Really, anything egregious. You're right. They play hard for him every single game. They play to the final whistle. They weren't going to win. They weren't going to beat Tampa, but they get to stop the quarterback, and that offense has a chance to upset them. And it's the same way with LA. The defense gets to stop. I'm not going to say they beat them, but they have a good chance. They have an opportunity to do that. And that's how this team is getting better week by week. It's talent-wise, they're probably not a 4-6 football team, but they're beating teams that are around or near their talent level, and they're losing teams that are better than them. Kansas City, Tampa Bay. San Francisco's probably the only loss where you're like, okay, maybe Nick shouldn't have lost that game. But that was his second game coaching the NFL. I guarantee you they play San Francisco now. They like before with them. They just do. So I'm looking at it as this team is getting better. The schedule's getting easier. And a lot of that has to do with the head coach. He just seems to, week to week, he seems to kind of adjust his game plan, kind of know his opponent a bit. It's a nice, refreshing change for what this football team has endured the past couple seasons. That's not a knock on Doug Peterson, but it is different to see a head coach kind of, okay, we're going to change it up a little bit this week just because of the opponent we're facing. We're not going to do it my way or the highway.
All right, JK, I got Damo's take on this. I need yours as well, because as we sit here and give credit to Nick Sirianni and point out what has gone right with this football team this year, and I think he needs the credit for that. He's got a tough call this week. Miles Sanders seems to be ready to come back and rejoin the team. He did say on social media that he was back. It was impossible because of the IR status, 3 games. He couldn't be activated, he couldn't practice. Well, he is eligible to practice, and they don't even have to put him on the roster until right before the game, as a matter of fact, because you've got a window to give a guy practice time up until the game time when you're going to reactivate him. Assuming they do, I guess they can push it and say, yeah, we didn't love what we saw in practice. They're not forced to activate Miles Sanders this week, but he kind of forced their hand by saying he's back on social media last week. If he's good enough to go and he looks good in practice, and yes, the Eagles media will get to see the limited amount of practice that they do, and maybe they'll get a glance at Miles Sanders and be able to give an opinion as to whether he's ready to go or not. 4 backs do not go into 3 roster spots, and we know we've been to 3 the last couple of weeks with Howard and Scott running the ball as effectively as they have. Kenny Gainwell becoming less of a factor than he used to be. Miles Sanders was the starting back, the lead back on this football team. There's a reason why week 1 he was the guy, and Jordan Howard's still on the practice squad, and Boston Scott was getting DNP, coach's decision, not getting any carries or any plays on offense whatsoever. How will they handle the 3 backs into 2 roles as far as handling the football and getting a chance to run it? It's probably one of the bigger issues that the coaches had to deal with so far this year. How's it going to play in the Eagles running back room this week leading into the game against the Saints?
I think the tough decision would be to reduce Boston Scott snaps. And I hate to say that because Boston Scott has been kind of a breath of fresh air for this team, but I think you need kind of a thunder and lightning approach. And maybe that's what Nick Sirianni does to stop the number 1 run defense in the NFL, to get some yards off them. I think Miles Sanders can provide that lightning. I think you still make him the number 1 running back, and you got to tell him, you got to run between the holes and you'll get your big plays. And, they'll probably have some more explosiveness there, but then you give Jordan Howard the ball, the battering ram. And, unfortunately, that's just the way it is in the NFL. Boston Scott has been very effective. They still need him for special teams, so I think he plays a role there. Maybe he gets a little more carries than he did at the beginning of the season when Miles Sanders was playing. But I think I would do the old Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard combination, and you mix in Kenny Gainwell on some pass. But I think Gainwell snaps are going to go down too. I think it's going to be mostly Sanders and Howard and maybe dispel Sanders a bit because I mean, I know they got a bye week in what, 3 weeks? I guess it is now. It's coming up, but maybe you put in Boston Scott there to kind of give Sanders a break on the possession or two. But he's again, I think it's going to be Sanders and Howard going forward.
All right. So now with all the advanced wagering menus we have these days, I'm going to run one by you. Most carries by an Eagle running back in the first half of the game against the Saints. The second half, the score and the time and everything else may dictate specific decisions that the coach is going to make. But you come in with your game plan before the game starts. They even map out plays. They adjust that too. But sometimes they actually run it down the exact way they think it's going to work out. Who gets more first half carries, assuming that Miles Sanders is activated, which I think is a pretty good assumption. Miles Sanders or Jordan Howard? Who gets more carries? Because you said Miles is the number one back, which would indicate he'd get more carries in the first half. You think that's going to be the case?
Yeah, I think so. And I think they owe it to Miles Sanders to do this. Look, they've been committed to running the football the last 3 weeks. I think they owe it to Miles Sanders to see if he can be a part of or maybe even enhance what they've been doing running the football. The explosive runs that Boston Scott or Jordan Howard probably could have had, Miles Sanders would have. And again, this is more, and we know Miles Sanders likes to break it to the outside. We know he's not a between the tackle runner. But if he does run straight up the middle, he's going to get those big plays. And I think that actually makes this Eagles offense better. I don't know what the Eagles don't like about Miles Sanders. I don't know if it's because he can't catch the ball, which they don't really throw a lot of plays to running backs anyway. At least not the guys not named Kenny Gainwell. But I'm looking at it as I think they need to see what Miles Sanders can do when they do pound the ball. And it's going to be a tough task this week because they are playing a really good Saints run defense. But I think he does get the most carries this week, Jody, at least for this week.
We shall see. I hope you're right, but I'm not sure that you are because Howard has really helped the Eagles to their 2 wins in these last 3 games, and I don't know if they're going to go away from him. Boston Scott's been good too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to minimize what Boston Scott has contributed, but to me, Howard has been the bigger contributor of the 2, and I don't think they're married to either one of them, and I don't know how married they are to Miles Sanders either. So it's going to come down to basically what the offensive brain trust thinks, and that, of course, is led by Nick Sirianni going into this game. Probably have to do a little bit more work as to what running has been effective against the Saints. Has it been between the tackles? Has it been on the edges? Whatever it is, hasn't been all that effective because Saints are one of the better defenses in the National Football League. But the running backs the Eagles have certainly do have styles and where they are more effective. So that may very well factor in. All right, let me ask you about another questionable, sorry to say, aspect of the Eagles offense going forward this week against New Orleans. And that's if Dallas Goedert isn't good enough to go. He took the shot in the head yesterday. He's probably going to end up in concussion protocol, but that doesn't mean he's definitely out for this upcoming game against the Saints. It's a wait-and-see thing, and we'll probably find out a little bit more later on today when we hear from Nick Sirianni. My guess would be he's not going to commit to anything, but he may give us a little bit more information. Assuming Goedert is not good to go, Jack Stoll went in yesterday, caught a couple of passes, short passes, no run after catch passes, made a couple of grabs. And Johnny Mack is down there in practice all the time. And he's told me that Jack Stoll has looked good. I have not seen it yet. I know that they think highly of Tyree Jackson. That's why they kept him, undrafted free agent, converted quarterback. Howie Roseman felt the need to mention his name on the day that they traded Zach Ertz, that was one of the reasons why they did. They wanted to open up playing time for some of their young tight ends. And Tyree Jackson, I know for a fact, because John was not the only one who said it. A bunch of the Eagle guys that we got on said the same thing, that, man, he's impressive, just physically look at, and he's got athleticism, and he's made good plays in practice. That's all it was, in practice. So the Eagles are now all of a sudden kind of short at the tight end position. Yeah, they can't get Zach Ertz back. He's not coming back. Sorry, guys. So it's going to be Stoll and it's going to be Jackson. Did the Eagles make a mistake by trading Zach Ertz?
Well, not at the time they did it. Did they get much for him? No. But I don't think they actually look, they had to believe more in Jack Stoll and Tyree Jackson. I don't think they made a mistake by doing it because I don't think Zach Ertz is going to come back anyway. So at least they got something for him. But you can't predict injuries. And at the time, what were they when they traded Zach Ertz? Were they 2-4, 2-5? I'm trying to remember what they were when they actually traded Zach Ertz. So it was after the Tampa game. So they were 2-4. So this didn't look like especially in the NFC, it didn't look like it was going to be the 7th seed was going to be what it was. It'd be nice to have Zach Ertz this week, but he's not here. So I don't think they made a mistake, Jody. I honestly don't. I think they just got to roll with the punches right now. And if they really like Tyree Jackson, I think they got to play him more. And Jack Stoll is one of those guys. I haven't seen it either. I'm not like McMullen. I'm not down there, but he didn't look like a guy Jalen Hurts was all that comfortable throwing to yesterday. He's definitely comfortable throwing the Dallas Goedert, and he's Tyree Jackson's barely played that, and I agree with Damo. I think he's going to make an impact in this team down the line. Maybe not in 2021, but he's definitely going to be a part of this team's future plans on offense. But it's a shame that Dallas Goedert may miss this week. I hope that's not the case. But by the way, that should have been a penalty for helmet to helmet hit. I don't know why it wasn't called. I digress. But it's a shame that no one really stepped up. I mean, and that's what I was kind of alluding to Damo a little bit. Quez Watkins did, but he didn't finish the play. He didn't catch the ball. They're going to have to go more 11 personnel, no more of this. They just don't have the personnel to go 13 personnel. So they're going to have to go 11 personnel. And J.J. Arcega-Whiteside got hurt yesterday too. So you're short at receiver as well. And I don't know how they're going to do this going forward. I guess they bring in somebody else, maybe our old buddy Richard Rodgers comes back, Jody. Who knows?
That's where I was going next. Are we going to see the return of Dick Rod? He did get elevated a couple of weeks ago. He's still on the practice squad. He's half on the practice squad. He's occasionally on the active roster. He is kind of the Eagles limbo tight end, and give both he and the Eagles credit for keeping the relationship going. I thought at some point some other team would snack him up, but Eagles have stuck by him for as much as they have, and he's stuck by them as well. I think he's got a better chance to actually make a play downfield if Goddard isn't here than either Stoll or Jackson at this time. Now you get back into roster crunching again. How do you add him to the roster? I guess you would have to put Goddard on injured reserve, and I don't think they want to do that if he's just going to be out this week. That's a challenge the Eagles have this week to make sure they are covered at tight end and be able to keep the roster intact.
Yeah, I think Richard Rodgers would get promoted just in case, kind of like a security blanket, because you can do that. You can promote guys from the practice squad. I have a feeling he's going to be one. And if I remember correctly, that's the last time you can promote him, unless you have to put him on the active roster going forward. But again, if it's a concussion, it's probably only a week anyway. So, thanks, Richard Rodgers. I mean, obviously we can't use you anymore the rest of the season. We hope that's not the case. But if a guy would get hurt for the rest of the year, then you would have to use him going forward and put him on. But yeah, I agree with you, Jody. I have more confidence Richard Rodgers can make a play downfield than any of these two right now. And that's not a knock on Jack Stoll or Tyree Jackson. It's because Richard Rodgers was good for this team last year, where it was Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts. He has that experience downfield. Is he a good pass blocker? No, but you're not asking him to be either. You're asking him to be an added weapon in the backfield. He can play kind of like a hybrid wide receiver tight end spot. I still think this team needed a veteran wide receiver at some point this season. I know there's not a lot of guys out there right now, but Rashad Perriman, I'm not crazy about him, but he was there for the taking, and he's a guy you could have used. Obviously, he's on Tampa Bay's practice squad now. I think you need to get someone in there just because of the lack of depth at wide receiver and the lack of production Jalen Reagor has been giving you. And injuries are going to take their toll in a 17-game season. We still got 17 games left, 7 games left to play here with a bye week. So, yeah, it's a tough situation they're in right now. I have a lot of faith in this coaching staff. They can work around it, but this goes more toward the front office decision. Wide receiver is definitely a position they're going to have to upgrade this offseason regardless.
Off-season, yes, but we're dealing with the now right now, and the now is the Saints coming up on Sunday. And I ran this by John last week, and he basically poo-pooed me, which I wanted him to if that's the way he felt. John Hightower is still on the practice squad of this team, and I know we're You really have to pay attention to these crunching numbers. If you're going to elevate someone from the practice squad, then that means somebody else has got to go. You can only have X amount of players on the roster in any given week. You got your actives, deactives, but somebody's got to come off the overall roster. If you would add a guy, like John Hightower, I would have zero problem putting J.J. Arcega-Whiteside on IR for 3 weeks because, oh, God forbid they lose his blocking for 3 weeks.
I forgot he was on the team until he got hurt yesterday.
I know why he's still here, because he was a second-round draft pick, but he just doesn't give you anything. Not that Hightower's going to jump in and make 5 catches, but at least I think there's the possibility of him making a play downfield, where I think there's no possibility of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside making a play downfield. Am I just whistling in the wind here that maybe a guy like Hightower can jump in and give the Eagles an assist for a week coming off the practice squad?
So I always have this fun stat about John Hightower I like to use because he has made plays in the past. You know, after week 9 of last season, the most 40-yard catches in the NFL was John Hightower. Did you know that?
Really? No.
Yeah, isn't that something? And Carson Wentz seemed to like him. I mean, I think it was only like 3, but he had the most 40-yard catches in the league at one point last season, his rookie year. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Maybe this guy could be a nice little deep threat for the Eagles. And then he kind of disappeared, and he's never reappeared. I don't know if that's the only route he can run, or if he just doesn't know the plays. I don't know, but that might be your option right now. And I'm kind of like McMullen. I kind of push it aside because I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, he's on the team too. But if you're that desperate at wide receiver and you think he's a better option than anybody that's a free agent right now, quote, he is. So yeah, I think that might have to be the guy. And I'm like you, Jody. They can put J.J. Arcega-Whiteside on IR for the rest of the year. He's not a good player. I don't really care about his blocking. I know what he provides on special teams. I know special teams is important in the NFL, but this guy was a second-round draft pick. You got to contribute at some point. I think Devonta Smith actually passed Jalen Reagor in career receiving yards yesterday, and he passed J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in career receiving yards by week 4. So that just tells me all I need to know about the Eagles wide receiver group right now.
Exactly. If Dallas Goedert can't play this week, can't play next week, but they think he can play that third, guess what? He stays on the roster. There's no IRing him. You don't want to lose a Dallas Goedert game. If J.J. Arcega-Whiteside can't play this week, but maybe play, doesn't matter. J.J., hop on that IR. Take those 3 weeks, buddy. Little vacate for you. I'm not sweating his removal from the lineup one iota. All right, coming up next, I have a spot I'm looking forward to because we talk a lot about the Eagles, but even more specifically about Jalen Hurts and the opinion across the league of what he's done so far this season, because the Eagles, let's be honest, have a big decision to make. Are they going to go in another direction at quarterback during this offseason? Are they going to come back with Jalen Hurts again and put off finding a potential quarterback for the next decade for a year? Or is Jalen Hurts the guy who is going to be the Eagle quarterback for the next decade? We're here every single day watching it, talking about it, and the like. It's nice when you get an outside opinion, an educated outside opinion. And I believe we're going to get that coming up next. Trey Wingo's going to hop aboard with us here on Bird.